The National Electrical Code, or NEC, Section 410.11, C states that electrical equipment and materials must be approved for the specific environment in which they are installed. Equipment should be designed and installed according to the manufacturer's instructions. NEC Section 410.4 addresses luminaires and lighting equipment in wet locations, stating they must be weatherproof. Section 300.9 states that when installed in damp or wet locations, non-metallic sheathed cable must be type NMC or NMB that complies with Article 336. Bathrooms are typically considered wet locations. Therefore, exhaust fans with lighting installed in the shower or tub area must be marked for wet locations. The fan housing must incorporate a rubber gasket or some other form of protection to prevent moisture from entering the unit. The fan must also be wired on a ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, protected circuit. An argument could be made that if the fan isn't installed directly over the shower or tub, then it doesn't need a wet locations marking. However, the NEC defines a wet location as an area where water or other liquids are present in the normal course of operation, either due to direct exposure or condensation. Because the fan is installed in a bathroom, it is generally considered to be in a wet location and, as such, must comply with the outlined requirements. Let's break this down further. Firstly, it is essential to understand the definition of a wet location according to the NEC. This isn't just about direct exposure to water, but also includes areas where condensation is likely to occur. Bathrooms, due to the presence of showers and tubs, inherently fall into this category. Secondly, the requirement for the fan to be marked for wet locations is not merely a suggestion, it is a mandatory safety measure. This marking signifies that the fan has been specifically designed and tested to withstand the humid and potentially wet conditions of a bathroom environment. Thirdly, the mention of a rubber gasket or other protection is crucial. This is to prevent moisture from seeping into the electrical components of the fan, which could lead to corrosion, short circuits, and potentially even electrical shock hazards. Fourthly, the necessity of a GFCI protected circuit is another layer of safety. GFCIs are designed to detect even small imbalances in electrical current, which could indicate a leakage to ground. In such cases, the GFCI will quickly trip, cutting off the power and preventing potential electrocution. Fifthly, the reference to non-metallic sheathed cable in Article 336 highlights the importance of using appropriate wiring methods in wet locations. Non-metallic sheathed cable that complies with Article 336 is specifically designed to resist moisture and corrosion, ensuring the longevity and safety of the electrical installation. Sixthly, let's consider the implications of not adhering to these code requirements. Installing a fan that is not marked for wet locations in a bathroom could lead to several problems, including premature failure of the fan, increased risk of electrical shock, and potential fire hazards. Seventhly, it is crucial to remember that electrical codes are in place to protect people and property. They are not arbitrary rules, but rather are based on years of experience and research into electrical safety. Ignoring or circumventing these codes can have serious consequences. Eighthly, when in doubt, it is always best to consult with a qualified electrician or electrical inspector. They can provide expert guidance on code requirements and ensure that the electrical installation is safe and compliant. Ninthly, it is important to note that the NEC is updated regularly to reflect changes in technology and safety standards. Therefore, it is essential to stay up to date on the latest code requirements to ensure compliance. Tenthly, remember that the architect's design, while potentially aesthetically pleasing, must also comply with all applicable codes and regulations. If there is a conflict between the design and the code must always take precedence. In summary, when installing a bathroom exhaust fan with lighting in the shower or tub area, it is crucial to adhere to all applicable NEC requirements. This includes ensuring that the fan is marked for wet locations, that the housing has moisture protection, that it is wired on a GFCI protected circuit, and that appropriate wiring methods are used. Ignoring these requirements can have serious safety consequences. Let's consider the specific sections of the NEC that are applicable here in more detail. Section 410.11 C emphasizes the importance of using equipment that is approved for the environment in which it is installed. This means that the fan must be specifically designed and tested for use in wet locations. Section 410.4 further clarifies this requirement by stating that luminaires and lighting equipment in wet locations must be weatherproof. This goes beyond simply being resistant to splashes of water. It means that the equipment must be able to withstand prolonged exposure to moisture without being damaged. Section 300.9 addresses the wiring methods used in wet locations. It specifies that non-metallic sheathed cable, when used in damp or wet locations, must be type NEC or NMB and must comply with Article 336. These types of cable are specifically designed to resist moisture and corrosion, ensuring the safety and longevity of the electrical installation. The definition of a wet location, as defined by the NEC, is also critical to understanding these requirements. A wet location is not just an area where water is directly sprayed or splashed, it also includes areas where condensation is likely to occur. Bathrooms, due to the presence of showers and tubs, typically fall into this category. It is also important to consider the role of the GFCI protection. A GFCI is a device that is designed to detect even small imbalances in electrical current. If it detects an imbalance that indicates a leakage to ground, it will quickly trip, cutting off the power and preventing potential electrocution. This is particularly important in wet locations, where the risk of electrical shock is higher. The architect's argument that the fan is not installed directly over the shower or tub is not necessarily valid. The NEC definition of a wet location is broad enough to encompass areas where condensation is likely to occur. Therefore, even if the fan is not directly exposed to water, it is still considered to be in a wet location if it is installed in a bathroom. The best course of action is to err on the side of caution and install a fan that is marked for wet locations, regardless of its exact placement in the bathroom. It is also important to document the decision-making process and the reasoning behind it. This can be helpful in case of future inspections or questions. In addition to the specific code requirements, it is also important to consider best practices for electrical installations in wet locations. This includes using watertight connectors, sealing any penetrations in the wall or ceiling, and ensuring that all electrical boxes are properly grounded. It is also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for installation. The manufacturer's instructions will often provide specific guidance on how to install the equipment in a wet location. By following these instructions, you can help ensure that the installation is safe and compliant. Remember, electrical codes are in place to protect people and property. Ignoring or circumventing these codes can have serious consequences. When in doubt, always consult with a qualified electrician or electrical inspector. They can provide expert guidance on code requirements and ensure that the electrical installation is safe and compliant. Finally, it is important to stay up to date on the latest code requirements. The NEC is updated regularly to reflect changes in technology and safety standards. Therefore, it is essential to stay informed about the latest changes to ensure that your electrical installations are safe and compliant. Let's expand on the practical implications of each of these points. Firstly, concerning the selection of the exhaust fan itself, look for the wet location marking clearly displayed in the product packaging and the fan housing. This marking is your assurance that the fan has undergone rigorous testing to meet safety standards for humid environments. Secondly, when installing the fan, pay close attention to the gasket or other sealing mechanism. Ensure it is properly seated and forms a tight seal against the ceiling or wall. This prevents moisture from creeping into the fan's internal components. Thirdly, the GFCI protection is not just a code requirement, it's a life-saving measure. The GFCI outlet or breaker should be readily accessible for testing and resetting. Test it monthly to ensure it's functioning correctly. Fourthly, when running the wiring, use the appropriate type of non-metallic sheathed cable as specified in Article 336 of the NEC. Secure the cable properly and avoid sharp bends or kinks that could damage the insulation. Fifthly, regarding the location of the fan, even if it's not directly above the shower, consider the overall humidity levels in the bathroom. Steam from the shower can permeate the entire room, creating a wet location environment. Sixthly, document your work. Keep a record of the fan's model number, the date of installation, and any relevant code sections that you consulted. This documentation can be valuable for future reference or inspections. Seventhly, if you're unsure about any aspect of the installation, don't hesitate to call a qualified electrician. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it's always better to be safe than sorry. Eighthly, be aware that local building codes may have additional requirements beyond the NEC. Check with your local building department to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. Ninthly, consider the long-term maintenance of the fan. Clean the fan regularly to remove dust and debris that could accumulate and reduce its efficiency. Tenthly, when replacing an existing fan, carefully inspect the wiring and the surrounding area for any signs of damage or corrosion. Address any issues before installing the new fan. Let's delve even deeper into the specifics of Article 336 and the types of non-metallic sheathed cable that are permitted in wet locations. Type NMB cable, which is commonly used for general wiring, is permitted in damp locations but not in wet locations. Type NMC cable, on the other hand, is specifically designed for use in damp and wet locations. It has a moisture-resistant covering that protects the conductors from corrosion. When using NMC cable, be sure to use connectors that are also rated for wet locations. These connectors will provide a watertight seal around the cable entry point, preventing moisture from entering the electrical box. The importance of proper grounding cannot be overstated. Grounding provides a safe path for electrical current to flow in the event of a fault, reducing the risk of electrical shock. Ensure that the fan is properly grounded according to the manufacturer's instructions and the requirements of the NEC. Check the grounding conductor for continuity and ensure that it is securely connected to the grounding system. When making connections, use Y connectors that are listed for the size and type of conductors being used. Ensure that the connections are tight and secure to prevent loose connections, which can lead to overheating and electrical hazards. Before energizing the circuit, double-check all wiring connections and ensure that everything is properly installed and secured. Use a multimeter to verify that there are no shorts or ground faults. After energizing the circuit, test the GFCI protection to ensure that it is functioning correctly. Push the test button on the GFCI outlet or breaker to trip the circuit. Then reset the GFCI to restore power. In conclusion, installing a bathroom exhaust fan with lighting in a shower tub area requires careful attention to detail and adherence to all applicable codes and regulations. By following these guidelines, you can help ensure that the installation is safe, compliant, and reliable. Always prioritize safety and consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns. Remember to continuously educate yourself on updates to the NEC and local building codes to remain compliant with the latest safety standards. By taking these precautions, you'll contribute to a safer living environment for yourself and others.